Little boys sold roses in the rain, unaware the man buying them was his father. The rain had been falling for hours, a relentless curtain that blurred headlights and turned the city into silver and shadow. Under a flickering streetlight stood a small boy no older than 7, soaked through to his skin, clutching a handful of wilted roses wrapped in newspaper. His fingers were red and trembling, the petals bruised from the cold. "Roses, sir?" "Only $2, he whispered to each passerby, voice swallowed by the storm. Most didn't look. Some frowned, quickening their pace. Others pretended not to hear. But when Lucas Reed, late from work and half-sheltered beneath his black umbrella, saw the boy's face, he stopped. The boy's eyes were enormous, dark, glassy, strangely familiar, and filled with something that pierced through rain and reason alike. Quiet exhaustion, the kind that didn't belong on a child. Lucas hesitated, unsure what to say, then crouched, lowering the umbrella to shield them both. "You'll ruin those roses out here," he said gently. The boy blinked up at him, water streaking his cheeks like tears. "Can't go home till I sell them all. He'll get mad." His lips were pale, voice hoarse from the cold. Lucas's stomach tightened. "Who'll get mad?" he asked, but the boy just looked away, hugging the flowers to his chest like armor. A bus roared past, splashing dirty water over their shoes. Lucas glanced toward the corner cafe, light, warmth, safety, and then back at the boy. "How about this?" he said, reaching for his wallet. "I'll buy them all." "Every last one." The boy's eyes widened. "All?" "All," Lucas nodded. "You can go home, dry off." The boy hesitated as if testing for a trick. "That's $26, he said carefully. Lucas handed him 30. "Keep the change." For the first time, the boy smiled, small and unsure, teeth chattering. He started counting the money with fingers that barely worked, whispering numbers under his breath. Lucas held the umbrella steady over him, watching. Then something silver slipped from the boy's collar, a tiny locket, old and tarnished. Lucas saw an engraving half-worn by time, the letter S intertwined with an L. His breath caught. For a second, the street noise disappeared, replaced by the faint memory of laughter under summer light, and a name he hadn't spoken in years. Sophia! Lucas Reed kept his umbrella tilted toward the boy as they crossed to the small cafe on the corner, rainwater streaming from the fabric like liquid glass. Inside, the bell above the door chimed, and warmth rushed to meet them, coffee, frying butter, faint cinnamon. The boy hesitated on the threshold, shoulders hunched as if expecting to be scolded for dripping. "It's okay," Lucas murmured. "You're not in trouble. Let's just get warm." The waitress, middle-aged and kind-eyed, gestured them toward a booth near the window. Lucas ordered hot chocolate for the boy and black coffee for himself. The boy pressed his knees together on the vinyl seat, clutching his bundle of roses like a lifeline, eyes darting to every sound, the hiss of the espresso machine, the laughter from a couple in the next booth, the slam of the kitchen door. "You can set them down," Lucas said quietly. "They've done their job tonight." The boy hesitated, then placed the flowers gently on the table, lining them up in neat rows, counting each stem under his breath. "What's your name?" Lucas asked. "Aris," came the reply after a pause. "That's a strong name," Lucas said. "I'm Lucas." The boy nodded, eyes still lowered. "How old are you, Aris?" 7, I think." The waitress arrived with their drinks. Aris stared at the steaming cup. "It's for you," Lucas said, sliding it closer. Aris sniffed it, cautious, then took a small sip. His eyes fluttered shut for a second, like he was remembering what comfort felt like. "Do you live nearby?" Lucas asked. "Sort of," Aris said, tracing circles in the condensation on the window. "We move a lot. I help sell flowers. Uncle says I'm good at it." "Says I owe him for food." The words were said so matter-of-factly that Lucas felt a quiet anger rise beneath his calm expression. "What about your mom?" The boy's finger stopped moving. "She got sick." In her head. "Then she went away." He looked up, eyes shining. "Uncle says I made her tired." Lucas swallowed the ache building in his chest. I don't think that's true, he said softly. Aris shrugged, as if it didn't matter, but his grip tightened on the mug. A silence stretched between them, not heavy, just fragile. Outside, the rain slowed to a whisper against the glass. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? Lucas asked finally. Aris shook his head. He doesn't like when I come back empty. I was supposed to sell 30. You did, Lucas said. I bought them all, remember? Aris blinked, uncertain. Lucas reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a paper napkin, and slid it across. Write your uncle's number if you know it. I can call, tell him you're safe. Aris frowned, then scribbled a number in shaky digits. Lucas typed it into his phone, but didn't press call, just stared at the screen, mind racing between instinct and protocol. The boy coughed, a small, wet sound that made Lucas's decision for him. Let's keep you warm first, he said quietly, signaling for another cup of cocoa. The second cup of cocoa had cooled, but Aris still cupped it in both hands as if holding on to warmth itself. His damp hair clung to his forehead, a few curls framing eyes too old for his small face. Outside, puddles reflected neon signs, but inside the cafe, time seemed to slow. Lucas let the quiet linger until the boy spoke first. Uncle says if I sell enough, we can get a real room. Lucas's brows knit. Where do you stay now? Sometimes the market shed, sometimes in the van. Depends how I do. He said it without complaint, the way some kids talk about chores. He keeps the money, Aris added softly, but he says he saves it for me. When I'm bigger. Lucas tried to smile, but something inside him twisted. What about school? Aris looked blank. I used to go. Before Mama got sick. She said reading makes the world bigger, but Uncle says streets teach faster. He took a sip of cocoa and stared at his reflection in the cup. Do you remember your mom well? Lucas asked carefully. A little. She sang a song about roses when it rained. His lips shaped a few hummed notes, uneven, hauntingly familiar. Lucas froze. That melody. He hadn't heard it in years, not since Sophia Alvarez, the art student with the sunflower earrings, had laughed through the same song one rain-soaked afternoon outside a college cafe. The memory hit like thunder. Could it be? Your mom's name, he asked slowly. Was it Sophia? Aris nodded, eyes flicking up in surprise. You knew her? Lucas's throat closed for a second. A long time ago, he said quietly. She was wonderful. Aris smiled faintly, proud. She painted things. Flowers mostly. She said every rose had secrets inside, like people. Lucas exhaled, staring at the boy's small fingers, tracing the rim of the cup. Delicate, paint-stained at the edges from helping with blooms. What happened when she got sick? Aris's voice dropped to a whisper. She stopped smiling. Then Uncle Rafiq came, said she needed help. Said I should be good so she could rest. He looked away. Then one day, she didn't wake up. Uncle said she went somewhere better. Lucas gripped his coffee, fighting the tremor in his hand. He'd searched for Sophia once after college, half-heartedly, when her letters stopped coming, when the number she left was disconnected. He told himself she moved on, started fresh. Now her child sat across from him, wearing her eyes, humming her song. The locket flashed again as Aris leaned forward, the chain glinting under the cafe light. Did my mama know you? The boy asked. Lucas forced a steady breath. Yeah, he said, voice rough. She knew me. Aris nodded, accepting it without the weight of what it meant. He reached for a rose stem that had fallen from the bundle and straightened it carefully. Uncle says roses don't cry, he murmured. Even when they break. Lucas looked at the bruised petals, at the trembling hands holding them. Your mom used to say, he whispered, that roses bloom again if someone cares enough. The boy looked up, puzzled. Lucas smiled faintly. We'll get you warm and safe first, Aris. Then maybe we'll find out what that means. The rain had finally stopped, but the city still glistened under streetlights, every puddle catching reflections of passing cars. When Lucas and Aris stepped outside the cafe, the night air bit with leftover chill. The boy's jacket was little more than a threadbare hoodie, darkened from damp. Lucas shrugged off his own coat, the heavier one, and draped it over the small shoulders before Aris could protest. "You'll freeze otherwise," he said softly. Aris looked up, uncertain. "You'll be cold." "I'll manage," Lucas replied, trying to sound casual, but his throat felt tight. They walked side by side beneath the umbrella, water dripping from its edges like slow tears. Lucas's mind raced. Protocol, safety, the right way to help without crossing lines that could make things worse. But every few steps, he'd glance at the child beside him, the way Aris clutched his bag of coins like it was armor, and knew there was no neutral choice left to make. At the corner pharmacy, he stopped. "You're coughing," he said. "We're getting you checked before you go anywhere." Aris hesitated. "Uncle says doctors cost too much." "This one's free tonight," Lucas said gently. Inside, the fluorescent lights were harsh, but the young pharmacist behind the counter smiled. She handed Lucas a small packet of cough drops and pointed him toward the clinic 2 blocks down that stayed open for emergencies. "They take walk-ins. Tell them Carla's on duty." The boy's breathing rasped a little as they walked. "You don't have to," Aris murmured, voice small. "I can sleep near the station. I've done it before." Lucas stopped under a street lamp, crouching to meet his eyes. "You're not sleeping outside tonight, not while I'm standing here." The boy searched his face as if testing for deceit, but Lucas's expression didn't waver. "You trust me enough for one checkup?" Aris nodded, slow but certain. They crossed toward the clinic, the sign buzzing faintly in the damp air. "What will Uncle say?" Aris whispered. "We'll call him after," Lucas said, though his gut twisted at the thought. He pressed the clinic buzzer, and a tired nurse's voice crackled over the speaker. "Name?" "Lucas Reed," he said, "and a child who needs to be seen. No ID yet, but he's sick." The door clicked open. Inside, antiseptic air met the lingering smell of rain. Aris stepped in first, looking impossibly small against the sterile hallway light. Lucas followed, closing the door behind them, quietly, firmly, as if sealing the night outside for good. The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and chamomile tea, clean but tired. A nurse in scrubs, Nurse Patel, appeared from behind the counter, her eyes softening at the sight of the soaked child. "Let's get you warmed up, sweetheart," she said, leading Aris toward a curtained examination room. Lucas followed, answering intake questions he barely heard. "Any allergies? Parent or guardian?" The word caught in his throat. "Temporary guardian," he managed. The nurse nodded as if she'd heard that before. She returned with a blanket, wrapping it around Aris's shoulders. "Pulse is a bit high," she murmured. "Probably exhaustion and cold. He'll need food, fluids, rest." She examined the boy's chest with a stethoscope. The sound of the slow, uneven breathing tightened Lucas's chest. When she stepped out to fetch a doctor, Aris looked up nervously. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Lucas said softly. "You're being brave. That's all you need to do tonight." A few minutes later, a woman with a clipboard entered. Officer Maya Chen, raincoat still damp from the night. "Evening, Mr. Reed," she said after confirming his name from the front desk. "Nurse Patel called, said we might have a potential neglect or exploitation case." Lucas explained what he knew: the street, the roses, the uncle named Rafik who demanded quotas. Maya jotted everything down, face tightening, but voice calm. "We'll document everything properly. You did the right thing bringing him here." She turned to Aris, crouching low so her badge wasn't visible at eye level. "Hey, champ. I'm Maya. I help make sure kids are safe. Can I ask you a few questions?" Aris nodded warily. "What's your uncle's name?" "Rafik," he whispered. "He sells flowers. I help." "Do you live with him?" "In the van mostly. Sometimes at the stand. He gets mad if I'm slow." Maya's eyes flicked toward Lucas. The words carried years of practiced fear. "Okay," she said gently. "You're safe right now. Nobody's mad at you." She stepped into the hallway, dialing dispatch. Lucas heard her say words like child exploitation unit and protective custody protocol. Moments later, another figure arrived, Carla Ruiz, social worker on emergency duty, coat half-buttoned, coffee in hand. She had the calm authority of someone who'd done this 100 times and still cared. "Hi, Aris," she said warmly. "I'm Carla. I'm here to make sure you have somewhere safe to sleep tonight." She sat beside him, offering a granola bar. "You can tell me anything, okay? No one's going to be angry." Aris hesitated, then reached into his pocket and unfolded a crumpled photograph, creased from years of being held. It showed a younger woman with paint-stained hands and sunflower earrings, Sophia. Next to her stood a man, head turned halfway, smile shy, camera catching only part of his face. Lucas froze. It was him. A younger version, caught mid-laugh. His heart pounded as Carla examined the photo. "That's your mum?" she asked gently. "And who's this?" Aris shrugged. "Mum said he was my dad, but Uncle says he left." Silence filled the room, dense and electric. Officer Maya looked up from her notes, meeting Lucas's stunned expression. "Mr. Reed," she said carefully, "you might want to sit down." The clock on the clinic wall ticked softly, a fragile rhythm under the weight of silence. Lucas sat beside the exam bed, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Across from him, Aris's blanket had slipped from one shoulder. "Nurse." Patel had left warm broth in a paper cup, steam curled upward, tracing the air like a ghost of comfort. The boy watched Lucas with cautious curiosity, unaware of the storm behind the man's steady expression. Carla finished a few forms, then said, "Mr. Reed, Aris can be placed in temporary care tonight, but since you were the one who brought him in, we can list you as emergency contact until Child Services secures a spot. You're under no obligation, of course." Lucas looked at Aris, who was tracing the rim of his cup with a small finger, sleepy but alert. "He's already had enough strangers," Lucas said. "If it's allowed, I'd rather he come home with me for the night." Carla studied him, measuring intent. "He'll need constant supervision and a safe environment. I'll arrange a follow-up visit in the morning." "That's fine," Lucas said, his voice low but certain. When the paperwork was done, Lucas helped Aris into his coat, his own coat really, and carried the wilted roses the boy had refused to abandon. Outside, dawn threatened the horizon, bruised lights spilling into the wet streets. They stopped under the awning of a closed bakery. Aris reached into his pocket and pulled out one remaining rose, its petals softened by rain, but still holding color. "This one's for you," he said shyly. "You bought them all, but you didn't take any." Lucas smiled, the ache in his chest equal parts wonder and grief. "Thank you," he said. Aris tilted his head. "You look like her," the boy murmured. "Mama, when you smile." Lucas froze. "She used to say that," he whispered, almost to himself. "She'd say I smiled like I didn't know the world could break." They reached Lucas's car, an old sedan fogged from the damp air. Aris leaned against the seat, eyelids heavy. The small, silver locket slipped free again, catching the faint glow of sunrise. Lucas reached to adjust the seatbelt and saw it clearly this time, the letters engraved inside. "For Aris, if he ever needs him." L.R. He stared at the initials, his breath catching, his heart both breaking and mending in a single beat. He brushed the boy's hair from his forehead, whispering to the sleeping child, "You found me, kiddo. Somehow you found me." Morning sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds of Lucas's small apartment, painting soft stripes across the worn couch where Aris slept, curled under a blanket. The faint smell of rain lingered in the air, mixed with instant coffee and quiet disbelief. Lucas sat at the kitchen table, the locket open before him, its inscription now burned into his mind. He'd turned the piece over in his hands a dozen times, studying every scratch, every faded edge of the tiny photo tucked inside. Sophia's smiling face, the one he'd thought he'd only see in memory. Now her son lay sleeping in his home. The doorbell startled him. Carla Ruiz stood outside, clipboard in hand, her professional calm softening when she saw Aris still asleep. "I just wanted to check in before the case gets logged officially," she said, stepping inside. "He looks comfortable." "He was exhausted," Lucas murmured. "Didn't even make it through breakfast." Carla smiled faintly. "That's usually the first sign of safety. The body stops fighting." She opened her file. "I'll need to record basic information. You mentioned last night that you might know his mother." Lucas nodded, pushing the locket toward her. "Sofia Alvarez. We met in college." "I didn't know she had a son." Carla studied the locket carefully. "You understand, Mr. Reed, that if this is true, the agency will need verification. Birth records, photos, maybe a DNA test." "Whatever it takes," Lucas said quietly. Carla scribbled notes. "I've already contacted Officer Chen. She's preparing a statement and pulling Rafiq's record. There are prior complaints, labor violations, suspected trafficking, but no convictions. If we can prove exploitation, we can make sure Aris is never returned to him." She paused, voice softening. "Would you be willing to testify if needed?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "Anything." While Carla made calls, Lucas searched his old email archives. Years of messages scrolled by until one stopped him, an unread draft dated 8 years earlier. "If anything happens to me, promise you'll look for him. I named him Aris, after the song you loved." It was from Sophia. He stared at it, tears blurring the screen. "She tried to tell me," he whispered. Carla looked up. "That message could help establish intent," she said. "Send me a copy for the case file." Lucas nodded, forwarding it before his hands could tremble too much. "We'll need consent for a DNA test," Carla continued, "and I'll schedule an appointment. In the meantime, I can authorize temporary protective custody under your supervision. It's not adoption yet, just safety." Lucas exhaled, the weight in his chest shifting from panic to purpose. When Aris woke, blinking in the soft morning light, Lucas knelt beside the couch. "Hey, champ, hungry?" The boy nodded, still half asleep. "You're safe here," Lucas said gently. "We'll figure everything out, one step at a time." Aris smiled faintly, trusting. Lucas stood, glancing at the paperwork on the table, his signature inked beside a new title, Emergency Guardian. It felt both terrifying and right. 2 days later, Lucas sat in a small conference room at the Child Protective Services office, fingers drumming lightly against the table while a storm gathered outside. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and paper, like bureaucracy trying to mask its own fatigue. Across from him, Carla flipped through a thin folder stamped Temporary Guardianship. "The background check came back clean," she said. "But we've hit a complication." Lucas braced himself. "Rafiq contacted us this morning. He's claiming legal guardianship over Aris, supported by an old notarized statement signed after Sophia's death." Lucas felt his jaw tighten. "She would never leave her son to that man," Carla nodded. "I believe you, but the court will still require proof before overriding it." Officer Maya Chen entered mid-conversation, shaking rain from her jacket. "We located Rafiq's van," she said grimly. "He's been using several children to sell flowers, claiming they're relatives. We're investigating, but without direct testimony or documentation, prosecution could take weeks." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "Weeks? He could try to take Aris before then." Carla's tone was calm but firm. That's why we need to proceed carefully. You can't promise him permanent placement yet. It could jeopardize the case. Later that evening, Lucas returned home to find Aris on the floor with crayons spread around him, drawing roses on scraps of paper. Each petal was a different color, a patchwork of hope. "What's this?" Lucas asked. "A garden," Aris said. "Mama said when I was safe I could draw one again." Lucas sat beside him. "That's beautiful." The boy smiled but then hesitated. "Uncle came to the clinic today." Lucas nodded. "He called, yes, but he can't come here. The police are making sure you're safe." Aris's shoulders relaxed slightly, but his eyes still searched Lucas's face. "You won't let them take me?" Lucas felt the ache in his chest deepen. "I'll do everything the right way," he said carefully. "No promises I can't keep, but I won't stop fighting for you." That night, after Aris fell asleep, Lucas opened his laptop and began filling out the petition for temporary protective custody. The legal language blurred: suitable housing, financial stability, emotional readiness. He wondered how anyone ever felt ready for parenthood, let alone a situation this fragile. He attached Sophia's old email, the DNA request form, and the locket photograph. When he clicked Submit, a quiet finality settled in the room. The following afternoon, Carla called. "The petition's accepted for review," she said. "You'll need to attend a supervised evaluation next week." "Understood." "And Lucas, there's a chance they'll ask if you're willing to take foster training classes. It's standard for long-term custody." Lucas exhaled. "I'll do it." He hung up and looked toward the living room. Aris was humming that same lullaby again, this time without the trembling. Lucas leaned against the doorway, realizing that the song didn't sound like loss anymore. It sounded like belonging trying to bloom. The rain outside deepened to a gentle patter, and somewhere inside him the fear began to turn into resolve. Weeks passed, the kind that slipped quietly between rainstorms and early sunrises. Lucas's small apartment began to feel less like a shelter and more like a home. Aris had claimed a corner by the window as his flower stand, arranging paper roses he colored with crayons and real ones Lucas sometimes brought home from the grocery store. The smell of blooms, faint and sweet, mingled with the scent of pancakes on Saturday mornings. They found rhythms: school in the morning, checkups and therapy sessions in the afternoon, storybooks at night. Each small victory carried its own heartbeat. Aris learned to write his name in full, proud letters, A-R-I-S. His cough faded, replaced by laughter that filled spaces where silence used to live. Lucas, meanwhile, began attending the foster care workshops Carla recommended. The community center smelled of coffee and copier ink, full of people with stories like his, those trying to do right after the world had gone wrong. He learned about trauma responses, how children often tested love before trusting it. "Consistency is safety," the instructor said. Lucas wrote it down, underlined it twice. Officer Meyer visited often, checking in not as a cop, but as a friend. She'd bring folders, updates, and sometimes a smile. "Rafiq's case is under review," she reported one evening. "Other kids are talking now. You might have helped more than you realize." Lucas nodded, watching Aris build a tower of Legos nearby. "I just want him free," he said. One evening, as winter approached, Aris stood by the window, tracing raindrops on the glass. "When I was outside," he said softly, "rain felt heavy. Now it sounds happy," Lucas smiled. "That's because you're hearing it from home." The boy turned. "Do you think Mama hears it too?" Lucas knelt beside him, heart catching at the innocence in his tone. "If she's anywhere," he said, "she's in the sound of it." Watching, proud. December brought their first Christmas together. There wasn't much: second-hand ornaments, paper snowflakes Aris made from school worksheets. But the little tree glowed anyway. Aris wrapped a single rose stem in tinfoil and placed it at the base. "For Mama," he whispered. Lucas felt something inside him settle. Grief reshaped into gratitude. In late January, an envelope arrived from the state lab. Lucas's hands shook as he tore it open. The DNA report was simple, clinical, undeniable, 99.9% parental match. He stared at the numbers, the proof of what his heart already knew. Aris wandered into the room, curious. "What's that?" he asked. Lucas swallowed the lump in his throat. "It's a paper that says what we already figured out, kiddo." Aris frowned. "That you like pancakes?" Lucas laughed, scooping him into a hug. "That too," he whispered. "But mostly that you're mine." The courthouse rose from the city's edge like a slab of stone carved from grey sky. Inside it smelled of paper and polish, the hum of old radiators mixing with whispered nerves. Lucas sat at the wooden bench outside courtroom 3, his hand resting lightly on Aris's shoulder. The boy's new shoes clicked against the tile when he swung his legs, nervous energy bottled into rhythm. Carla arrived with her file, her smile calm but eyes bright. "You ready?" she asked softly. Lucas nodded, though his stomach felt hollow. "He's waited long enough." Inside, the courtroom was smaller than Lucas expected, almost intimate. A round clock ticked over the judge's bench. Officer Maya Chen sat near the back, offering a reassuring nod. The judge, a middle-aged woman with silver streaks in her hair, adjusted her glasses and smiled gently. "Let's begin," she said. "This is the custody hearing for minor Aris Alvarez, petitioned by Mr. Lucas Reed." The proceedings began with formality, Carla reviewing the DNA report, hospital records, and police statements. Lucas listened, barely breathing, as she summarized months of work into sentences that still didn't capture the nights, the laughter, the quiet promises whispered before sleep. "The biological link has been confirmed," Carla concluded. "But more importantly, the emotional bond is undeniable. This is a child who found safety, stability, and love." Rafik wasn't present. His attorney had withdrawn after charges of child exploitation were filed. The absence was its own victory. The judge turned to Lucas. "Mr. Reed, would you like to make a statement before I render my decision?" Lucas rose, hands trembling slightly. "Your Honor," he began, "I didn't plan any of this. I just saw a boy standing in the rain and couldn't walk past. Since that night, he's taught me what family means. It's not paperwork or blood. It's the choice to stay when it would be easier to leave." The judge nodded, expression unreadable but soft. "Thank you, Mr. Reed." Then she looked at Aris. "Young man, can you tell me where you'd like to live?" The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Aris's feet dangled above the floor as he gripped the edge of his chair. "With Lucas," he said simply. "He's my dad." The judge's smile deepened. "And why do you think that?" "'Cause he came back," Aris said. "When it was raining, he didn't walk past." A faint murmur spread through the room. Even the clerk looked up. The judge cleared her throat, blinking fast. "Then I think we're in agreement." She reached for her pen, her voice steady but warm. "By the authority vested in this court, custody of Aris Alvarez is hereby granted to Mr. Lucas Reed. The child's name will be legally changed to Aris Reed." Lucas's breath escaped in a ragged exhale. Aris turned to him, eyes wide, unsure if it was real. Lucas knelt, voice breaking. "It's official, buddy. You're home." The boy threw his arms around his neck, and for a moment the room disappeared. Only the sound of rain against the courthouse windows, gentle now, as if blessing them both. Officer Maya clapped quietly. Carla dabbed her eyes. The judge smiled. "Congratulations, Mr. Reed," she said. "You've both found your way." The sky outside the courthouse cleared, as if the storm had finally run out of tears. Lucas and Aris walked down the marble steps hand in hand, the boy's new name echoing softly in Lucas's mind. Aris Reed. It sounded right, complete. Carla and Officer Maya joined them on the sidewalk, both grinning. "Go home," Carla said. "He's earned a real meal and a real bed." Lucas smiled. "We both have." That evening, the small apartment glowed like a lantern. Mrs. Patel from the clinic had dropped off soup. Maya brought cupcakes. Even Carla stayed for a cup of tea, before rushing off to her next case. The air was alive with quiet joy and the kind of laughter that comes only when fear has finally left the room. Lucas cooked pasta, while Aris sat at the counter, feet swinging, practicing his new signature on napkins.
"You think people will believe I'm really your kid now?"
he asked, grinning shyly. Lucas glanced over his shoulder.
"Hey kid, they're gonna have to."
"It's on legal paper." Aris laughed, an unguarded, full sound that filled every corner of the home. After dinner, Lucas brought out a small box. Inside was a rose cutting he'd taken from the wilted bundle that first night in the rain. Together they planted it in a pot by the kitchen window. "This one's special," Lucas said. "It's proof things grow back." Aris pressed the soil with tiny fingers, brow furrowed in concentration. "You think Mama can see it?"
"Yeah," Lucas whispered.
"And I think she's proud of you." As night settled, Maya and Carla said their goodbyes, leaving the two of them surrounded by warmth and quiet. Lucas tucked Aris into bed, the same couch that had once been temporary, but now felt like forever. The boy clutched the silver locket, now polished and gleaming. "Dad," he murmured, tasting the word like it was something rare and sweet. Lucas froze, heart full. "Yeah, buddy? I like our house better than any place I remember." Lucas smiled, brushing the boy's hair aside. "Me too." When the lights dimmed, Lucas stood by the window, watching the reflection of the small rose plant in the glass. Its single green stem reached upward, fragile but alive. For the first time in years, the world felt steady, the kind of steady that comes after surviving a storm. A year later, the city's spring rain returned, but this time it fell softly, like a memory tamed. Outside the small red brick house on Maple Lane, a boy stood beneath an umbrella offering roses not to strangers, but to neighbors for a school fundraiser. Aris Reed, now 8, wore a bright yellow raincoat and a grin that didn't flinch at thunder anymore. His laughter echoed against the wet pavement as he called out, $2 for kindness." The same words, once whispered in desperation, now sounded like hope. From the porch, Lucas watched, coffee in hand, heart swelling at the sight. The potted rose from their kitchen had outgrown its container. They'd planted it in the front yard, and it bloomed wildly, red, defiant, alive. Inside, photos lined the walls. Aris's first day of school, the courthouse smile, a painting class where his brush had captured the memory of rain as light instead of shadow. Mrs. Patel still dropped by with soup when she could. Carla sent postcards from new placements. Officer Maya came to soccer games, cheering the loudest. The house had become more than shelter. It was proof that broken beginnings could still grow roots. Aris came running up the steps, clutching a handful of roses.
"Sold out," he beamed.
Lucas laughed.
"You keep this up, you'll run the whole fundraiser." "Nah," Aris said proudly. "I just told them every rose comes with a story." Lucas crouched beside him.
"What story's that?" Aris thought for a moment, then said softly, "That someone once bought all my roses because he didn't walk past." Lucas felt the lump rise in his throat but didn't hide it. He wrapped an arm around the boy's shoulders, drawing him close. "You changed my life, kiddo," he said quietly. "Guess that makes us even." Aris shook his head with mock seriousness. "Not even."
"I'm winning. I have you and pancakes." They both laughed, the kind of laugh that makes a house feel full. That night, after dinner, Lucas found Aris at the window, tracing raindrops like he once had in the cafe.
"What are you thinking?" Lucas asked.
"About Mama," Aris replied. "Do you think she knows we're okay?"
Lucas rested a hand on his shoulder.
"I think she made sure we would be." Aris nodded, satisfied, and turned to hug him.
"Night, Dad." When the house went quiet, Lucas stepped outside. The rain had slowed to a mist, the world breathing easy. He glanced at the rose bush swaying under droplets of silver light and whispered, "Thank you, Sophia." Somewhere above, thunder rolled softly, not a warning, just a reminder. He smiled. In the distance, a woman hurried past under her umbrella, pausing to help a small child who'd dropped their bag in the rain. Lucas watched, heart full. Sometimes the smallest act changes everything.
One night, one choice, one hand that doesn't walk past.
That's how love begins again, quietly, like a rose blooming after the rain.